Hey guys, real quick before we start the video, I recently posted the biggest project I've ever made on YouTube to my other channel, Muptown Funk. It's a massive vlog of my recent trip to Disney World, full of a bunch of fun travel and ride footage, as well as fun facts and trivia about every ride I go on. So if you're a fan of my content, or just a Disney fan in general, make sure to go to Muptown Funk and check out that video. A link to it will be in the pinned comment. Thank you. Now on to the video. Hello everybody, and welcome back to yet another video, and to a very special video. To celebrate the 14th anniversary of Cars 2 this week, I've gone back through the entire movie and picked out every Cars diecast that I think should be made from Cars 2. This is a sequel to my video that I did last year for the anniversary of the first Cars movie, where I found every car that should be made from that movie. Now we're tackling Cars 2, which is a pretty big task. If you couldn't already tell from the fact that this video is basically twice the length of the one for the first movie. Well, Cars 2 is typically considered the weakest of the Cars trilogy, and it's also the movie that has the least amount of diecasts made from it. It, in my opinion, has always stood out as having the best character designs and world building in the entire Cars franchise, as we get to see cars from several different parts of the world, in addition to really cool international racers and a whole world of spies and bad guys. Cars 2 is an absolute blast when it comes to characters, and easily Cars 2 diecasts are my favorite to collect out of any Cars project. I have an absolute ton of ideas that I'd like to share with you guys today, from characters and character variants, both major and obscure. We'll be going in order of the movie, just like last year's video. And, of course, before we begin, I just want to say that this list is all my own personal opinion, and I would love to hear yours down in the comments, so let me know which of these items you'd like to see made, or what other items from Cars 2 I didn't mention you'd like to see. Without further ado, let's get started at the start of Cars 2. Let's start off with probably the largest character on this entire list, Tony Trihull, the main lemon boat that we see at several points throughout Cars 2. Despite having quite a few pieces of merchandise, including a Disney Store playset release and a release in the Mattel Action Agents line, we've actually never gotten a 1/55 scale Tony Trihull playset, something that I think is certainly a missed opportunity. Most of the larger characters from Cars 2, Sidley, Stevenson, Krabby, all had Mattel playsets, some of them carrying cases, some of them, like Krabby, as part of the Quick Changers line, but unfortunately we've never gotten Tony Trihull. We even got Everett, the plane that they used to fly to Tokyo, but unfortunately no Tony Trihull. I think this is definitely kind of past the time where this would be made, but if they ever want to do a big character from Cars 2 as a playset they haven't yet, may I suggest Tony Trihull. We have a lot of different Finn McMissile diecasts in the diecast line, showcasing all of his different looks and gadgets, but I didn't realize until this watch through of Cars 2 just how many Finn looks we're missing. There are going to be quite a few different Finn McMissile gadget variants on this list, and it all starts here with our second item on the list, Finn McMissile with magnet wheels. Finn uses these wheels at several points in the movie. He uses them here at the start to climb up the side of the oil rig. He also uses them later when he's doing his whole karate fight in the streets of Japan. Now, these wheels actually have been released on a diecast before. The Lights and Sounds Spy Finn McMissile included both Finn's guns and these magnet/karate wheels, but of course this is a Lights and Sounds item. We don't have one that doesn't feature lights and sounds. Our next item has been one of my most wanted Finn McMissile variants for a very long time. It's a super niche one, but I think it's pretty fun. Finn with his sort of magnifying camera headlight that he uses to try to identify the Lemon's camera. Probably one of the most forgotten about significant items we're missing from Cars 2 is Rod Redline in his gremlin disguise. I'm honestly surprised we didn't get this back in 2011, 2012, and I'm even more surprised with how little I see people bring it up nowadays. Rod is in this disguise for a good chunk of his screen time, and it's never received any merchandise. Up next, I know it's insanely stupid to put this on the list, but I think the Garbage Cube Leland Turbo would genuinely be a really fun item to release as an accessory with a lemon or a Finn McMissile diecast or something. It would never happen considering it's literally a dead car in cube form, but that didn't stop Lego, right? Our next item is yet another Finn McMissile diecast, and this one is easily the most significant one we're missing, Finn McMissile with his two guns. Finn's guns pop up at several points across Cars 2, and while there is a Finn with weapon diecast which features one of his guns, we've never received an item with both of them, save for, once again, that Lights and Sounds one I mentioned earlier. We've received several Cars 2 characters' weapon variants over the years, and it'd be really nice to get Finn with both of his. I'm also not the biggest fan of the fact that the Finn with weapon we do have is permanently aiming. You know, he has one eye closed, so I'd love to have a Finn with a regular expression and the two guns at his sides. Our first of many lemons here on the list, we have the white gremlin that chases Finn McMissile before slipping off of the oil derrick and crashing into the ocean. This guy is a pretty common fan request. Fans have given him the name Keith Gremlin, and he's one I am a little surprised we haven't gotten due to just how much screen time he has. Up next, I want to dedicate a slot for the Lemons as a group. The Lemons are a really great group of characters to collect an army build, and honestly, I could be here all video. This whole video could just be me talking about each individual background lemon I'd love to see in the diecast line. So instead of pinpointing every single one, which would take forever, I just want to dedicate a spot to the Lemons as a group. Any new ones we could possibly get, I would absolutely love to see with no exceptions. I'm still gonna pinpoint some specific lemons throughout the video, like I just did with the white gremlin a minute ago, but just in general, any and all lemons would be great to get. While everybody knows that the original submarine Finn McMissile was inaccurate and got fixed in 2016 with Finn McMissile with breather, you might not know that Finn's hydrofoil release is also inaccurate. The hydrofoil Finn McMissile diecast we have has his wheels covered up by the hydrofoils, but as you can see, that is not the case in the movie. He has both his hydrofoils and his wheels visible at the same time, so I would love to see a corrected hydrofoil Finn. Let's move into the film's radiator spring scenes. I always love when Mattel gives us Cars 2 Radiator Springs background characters. It's not something that happens all that often. We got Tom Talk in 2017, and then very recently in 2022, we got Colin Borev and Revni Grelante. I would absolutely love to get some more of the Radiator Springs background visitors we see throughout Cars 2, and I've selected several of my favorites throughout the movie for this video. Starting off with this red background car that you could see stopping by Flo's. I absolutely love collecting background characters, and while Cars 2 is full of a lot of really great and unique background characters, I also love all of just the generic regular cars we see throughout the movies, and I love seeing those get diecast. It's always really fun. Colossus XXL is another iconic large-scale character from Cars 2 who's received several pieces of merchandise over the years, but never just a regular large-scale vehicle for the Cars diecast line. He has a Micro Drifters release, and he does also have a Hydro Wheels, which is 1/55 scale, but of course that's made to drive on water. We don't have a regular 1/55 scale line big plastic Colossus XXL, which I'm honestly pretty shocked about. He'd be a really great one to do, and I think a lot of kids and collectors alike would love to have him. When I did my video on Cars 1 last year, it was hard for me to find new McQueen variants that hadn't been made before. And it was even more hard for Cars 2, where McQueen's look barely changes, but one that I settled on that I really want to see made is a dirty version of Hudson Hornet Piston Cup McQueen. After his day out having fun with Mater, you can see McQueen gets pretty covered in dirt from all of their adventures, and honestly, I think this would be a pretty fun one to get, to have some light weathering on him, or maybe some heavier weathering like what we see on Dirt Track McQueen. Hudson Hornet Piston Cup McQueen is a beloved and fan-favorite paint job, and having a dirty version of it could be really cool, not only to have a more scene-specific version of him based on this part of the movie, but also for people who want to use him as a dirt track variant of this McQueen. Outback Miles' Axelrod is what Miles looks like before he goes missing in the wilderness, and this was actually supposed to receive a diecast back in 2016. There are several collectors out there who even got their hands on an early prototype of him. I think it's a real shame this item was cancelled. Not only is it really the last major Miles Axelrod variant that we're missing in the diecast line, it also pairs so perfectly with the Wild Miles Axelrod item from 2014. The Cars diecast line went kind of Miles Axelrod crazy a few years ago, giving us 3 variants of him in 2022 and 2023. I would have loved to have seen Outback Miles be resurrected at that point in time. That didn't happen, but I think honestly, next time they're going to release a Miles Axelrod, they should make it this one. There are a lot of great reporter cars in the background of Cars 2, just like with Cars 1, and like I said with the Lemons, I could be here all day just listing off different reporters that I'd like to see. So I've just pinpointed a few specific ones from throughout the movie. I really like this light blue reporter that we see while Miles is going off into the unknown. It's a very unique model. Kind of looks a bit like Vic Vanley maybe, but I'd love to see it. Just because, again, unique model that we haven't seen a reporter car be. Speaking of background characters, there are a lot of really great ones at the Wheelwell Motel that I would love to see, like this bright red Colin Borev repaint we see on the left of Fillmore. This car on the right to Luigi is a fun, unique model, and I really like this black pickup truck that sits by the door throughout the entire scene. It's not often we get blank pickup trucks in the diecast line. This would be a great addition. I really like this SUV background character that's kind of entering the Wheelwell Motel. They're on the right of Revni Grillante and Colin Borev. There aren't all that many SUV background characters in the Cars series or the diecast line, and we have plenty of SUV molds that could be used to make them, so I think it would be a really great one to get. Up next, our first Radiator Springs resident variant of the list, Waiter Guido. Well, we do have a version of Waiter Guido in the form of 2013's Guido with Shaker. I would really like to see a Waiter Guido that isn't holding any sort of accessory, just a regular blank one. You could pack it with Luigi, maybe include some drink accessories for them, but just a blank, regular Waiter Guido. And before we leave the Wheelwell Motel, I have one last background character I want to shout out, this BMW on the right of Sally. This car model appears all over Cars 2, being used for several different background characters, and we were supposed to get it on 2 different occasions in the diecast line, but both of them were cancelled. Moving into the travel montage, I'm always really surprised that we never received the flight attendant car here. This is Daniela Muffler, who was actually cancelled in 2012 alongside another car of her same model, Shelley Shift. That 2-pack, despite including in-flight Mater from this scene, was clearly based on these 2 flight attendants from later on in the movie, but you know what, whatever, let's not complicate things. This is Daniela Muffler, the end. Of course, in-flight Mater was cancelled alongside Daniela Muffler and Shelley Shift. He's another variant I'm really surprised hasn't been uncancelled, one of very few significant Cars 2 Maters left for us to get. When I think of missing Cars 2 Mater variants, in-flight Mater is always the second one to come to my mind. What's the first? Well, we'll get to that in just a minute. But while in-flight Mater would be fun, I really want an in-flight Luigi. Look at him with his little sleep mask. He's absolutely adorable. You could pack him in with a sleeping Guido. It'd be great. This has been one of my most wanted Cars 2 diecasts for a long time. I know that sounds really stupid, but it's genuinely a case where I noticed it as a fun background detail, and ever since then I've just always wanted to see it in diecast form. Make it happen, Mattel. Come on, Sleeping Luigi, please. I often say that the Tokyo background characters in Cars 2 are some of my all-time favorite Cars background characters. They're also unique and different looking. They all have such fun designs. So, what great Tokyo background character do I want to mention first that we haven't gotten yet? I like this blank white generic car in the background behind McQueen and Mater. I think it's the same model as Jonathan Garrison who we just got, so I don't know. Could be cool. On a far more interesting note, we all know Bob Pulley, the light blue taxi from this scene that got a diecast in 2016 and was re-released a few years ago. But did you know that there are a few other different colored taxis throughout this sequence? Well, I wanted to shout out this one that drives by Mater. It would be really fun to get a different colored taxi using the same model as Bob Pulley. Up next, I want to go over a few items from this scene that I simply think will never happen. They're very outside of the box choices that I just don't think Mattel would ever consider, starting off with the tire talkie host here. This guy appears on a giant TV screen on the side of an advertising truck named Tea Decatora. He's interviewing Francesco, who's kicking around a soccer ball. I think this would be a really fun item. A repaint of Vic Vanley. If you wanted to, you could even put him in a 2-pack with Francesco with a little soccer ball accessory. But I genuinely think the fact that this is a car that appears on the side of a TV screen on another car just makes it way too obscure. And like I said, it's a bit of an outside of the box idea for someone who could get a diecast. But if you want to get super technical, technically this guy is in the diecast line because he appears on the side of the Tea Decatora diecast. So that's something. But while the tire talkie host is a pretty obscure and unlikely choice, my next category here is something I genuinely don't think we'll ever get. For years now, I've wanted to see diecasts based on the cars we've seen on these Tokyo billboards. There are a ton of billboards in Tokyo with these fun, cartoony Cars character designs, and I've genuinely always wanted to see these in diecast form, but I don't think we'd ever get them. This just isn't something Mattel has ever done. Granted, we did get a diecast based on Globey, but that was based on the inflatable Professor Z crashes into later on in the movie, not his appearance on the billboards. But cars that appear on advertisements and billboards all over the Cars series are, in my opinion, an absolute treasure trove, an untapped goldmine of really fun and really unique diecast ideas. How fun would it be to get something like this little red car here with his super cartoony proportions? Or how about the Lotso Hug and Bear car, one of my favorite Easter eggs in Cars 2, which would allow us to get another Pixar crossover diecast. Advertisement cars have been a big want of mine for a very long time. Unfortunately, I think they're forever just a pipe dream, which is a shame. And finally, for this part of the montage, we have one last regular background character, this guy in front of McQueen and Mater. This character is a pretty unique mold. It kind of reminds me of an old school Jaguar or maybe even an old school Corvette, and it's reused a few different times in the movie, so this one would be a really great model to get that could be reused for other background characters. A few minutes ago, I said that In-Flight Mater is the second Mater I think of when I think of Maters that are missing from Cars 2. The first one is this guy right here, Mater with his oil can hat. This is how Mater looks when he's watching the sumo wrestling match in Tokyo, and it's an item I'm really surprised we never got. I feel like we would have gotten this back in 2012 or 2013 alongside all of the other significant Mater variants from Cars 2, but they simply never did this one. And I feel like we may never get it simply because it's one of those items that just seems completely forgotten to me. In all my years of YouTube, I don't think I've ever heard anyone request this specific Mater. It just doesn't seem like a popular request from fans, because I think most people just don't remember it. There are a lot of other far more memorable Maters from Cars 2, including other ones from this scene. Kabuki Mater, right, appears within seconds of this look and got a diecast and is far more memorable. But this is easily my most wanted Mater diecast from Cars 2. It is pretty easily forgettable in the movie, but it's also the most notable Mater diecast from this movie that's left for us to get. It's in there for a good couple seconds. I hope we see it someday. When we first see some of the World Grand Prix racers here on the Tokyo red carpet, they're all sitting next to other background cars. Surprisingly, these aren't their crew chiefs. Despite the fact that McQueen and his pit crew are driving by, I assume these guys are maybe managers or team owners or perhaps just reporters talking to each of the racers. Regardless of what they are, I think adding them to the diecast line would be really fun from the perspective of world building. It'd be great to get all four of them, the one next to Nigel, Max, Carla, and Miguel. And speaking of Miguel Camino, his diecast is pretty famously inaccurate, featuring a red spoiler and painted over windows, both of which aren't present in the movie. In the movie, Miguel's windows aren't painted over, and his spoiler is black, not red. For years now, people have been asking for a corrected Miguel Camino, and just last year, Miguel's GRC release actually featured the correct spoiler and windows. Hopefully, this correction to his regular diecast isn't far behind. One of my favorite camera cars in Cars 2 is this one, which appears next to the three Geisha girls. This was another item that was actually planned but cancelled. Her name was set to be Amara Revsk, and she was supposed to be released in 2017, but never saw the light of day. One of several Cars 2 and Cars 1 diecasts canceled because of the release of Cars 3. There are Ferraris all over the background of Cars 2, both here at the Tokyo party and also in the later Italy scenes, and while a lot of them are just the generic red Ferrari, there are also some yellow ones, which is pretty unique. About 10 years ago now, the deal Mattel and Ferrari had ended, preventing us from getting re-releases of Ferrari F430 and the Ferrari Fan Luigi and Guido diecasts, and of course preventing us from getting any future Ferraris in the diecast line. But recently they struck up a new one. I don't know if that deal includes cars, it might just be for Hot Wheels, but if it does include cars, it would be a really great way to reintroduce Ferraris into the diecast line, not just by re-releasing the older Ferrari items, but also by making some new ones. Cars 2 also has a lot of Porsches in the background, and while we have received one in the diecast line with Megan Carrar, I'd really like to see some of the others, like this yellow one that's hanging out by the Ferraris. I always really found the Megan Carrar diecast interesting because she's a background character, reusing the mold for Sally, one of the most significant characters in the Cars series, so getting some more of these background Porsches is something I'd really like to see. And while we're still on this shot, did you notice that Francesco's actually being interviewed in the back alongside his crew chief Giuseppe Motorsi? This is the only time in the movie where we see Giuseppe without his headset, which is interesting to me because up until recently, Giuseppe's character artwork always didn't feature the headset. I always love getting new variants of obscure characters, so getting Giuseppe without his headset based on this scene here, or just based on the fact that his artwork usually doesn't have it, is an idea that I really like. And while we're at it, we may as well get some of the other World Grand Prix racers without their headsets, since a lot of them have artwork that doesn't include the headset for some reason. Cars 2 famously replaces Jeff Gorvette in the Tokyo party scene in international versions of the film. And I believe we've received all of Jeff's replacement characters except for one. Fernando Alonso here appears in the Spanish version of Cars 2 and is unfortunately missing from the diecast line, which is a real shame. He has a really cool design, easily my favorite of the international Jeff replacements. He's the only one that wasn't a part of the 2012 Super Chase line. He's also the only one that isn't a repaint of Max Schnell. He is instead a reuse of Miguel Camino. Honestly, and it may surprise you to hear me say this, I feel like it's not impossible for us to get the Fernando Alonso diecast. Sure, the ideal time, the 2012 Super Chase line when they made the rest of these guys, has passed, but we continue to receive variants for characters like Frosty and Fyodor Rachanov into the future. The real Fernando Alonso, from what I gather, is still popular and he's still racing, so maybe we could see this diecast released in some way. The issue is I just don't know how, right? It would be perfect as a Super Chase, but we don't get Super Chases anymore, at least not currently, in the diecast line. Perhaps some sort of collaboration with the real-world Fernando Alonso, a la the NASCAR line, or some sort of regional exclusive. I don't know. I hope we can see this one day, I just don't know how it would happen. The next few are some Tokyo Party background characters, a group we have surprisingly few of in the diecast line for how many Tokyo cars we have. Up first, I want to bring up this red Range Rover that you could see behind the Zen Master. I like this guy's design. He appears at several points throughout the movie. I believe his model is also reused in London later on. We don't get a lot of red background characters, honestly, so this one stood out to me. When Finn and Holly are first meeting, I never noticed these two cars that drive behind them. There's this Porsche and another car next to them, and they're kind of clinging next to each other and laughing. They drive all the way behind Finn and Holly here. It was hard to get a good shot of both of them together since they're passing behind two of the main characters, but they can make for a really good background character 2-pack. Next on the list, I'm going to mention metallic variants for Finn McMissile and Holly Shiftwell. This isn't something that appears in the movie, but It's something that the Cars Diecast line does all the time. We've never gotten any sort of metallic release for Holly, and I think she would look really nice with a metallic light purple. We do actually have a metallic Finn McMissile, but it's a very dark blue color that doesn't match his regular color scheme. If they made a new metallic Finn using the same metallic light blue they did for metallic Cal Weathers, it would look amazing. Let's make our way into the bathroom scene, perhaps Cars 2's most infamous sequence. There are two bathroom patrons in here when Mater first enters. Let's get the two of those in a two-pack together, shall we? This one in front, who's a repaint of the Denise Beam mold, and behind him is this guy, same type of car as the background character I mentioned earlier, that's in front of McQueen and Mater. For bonus points, instead of giving these guys car puns in their names, let's give them bathroom puns. We'll name this guy Ferdinand Flush, and this guy Tylette. And while we're still in the bathroom scene, let's get the bathroom assistant as well. This car, which may or may not be Chuki, I always called it Chuki. Whether or not it is her depends on the source. It tends to be generally considered that it is her, but she is pretty different looking than Chuki's regular design. Very stylized, slightly different car model. I'm honestly very surprised I've never seen anyone try to make a custom of this. This is yet another item we'll probably never get because it just appears on a screen and doesn't appear physically. A real shame. Transforming Rod Torque Redline is one of my most wanted Cars 2 diecasts, and it's one that I've seen several people suggest over the years. And I mean, how could you not want this? It's genuinely so cool. Look at that! Rod with all of these panels flipped out as he transforms from a gremlin back to his regular self. This would be so cool to see any type of merchandise of. Rod Torque Redline with weapon is up next. You'd be surprised with just how many potential Rod Torque Redline variants there are out there. For a character with very little screen time, he has quite a few different gadgets and looks. Considering we have variants of Finn and Holly with their weapons, Rod is only fitting to get as well. We have yet another Rod Torque Redline variant next. I'm going to call this one Rod with Data. This is him with a little attachment that he uses to attach the photo to Mater's undercarriage. Now this Rod is very similar to the Rod with Weapon that I just mentioned, but he has an attachment on his other wheel, and he also has a bit of crash damage from his bathroom fight. Of course, he's not as damaged as the damaged Rod Torque Redline just yet. This is a pretty obscure pick, one I've genuinely never seen anybody request before, but it is very significant to the movie. Without Rod having this attachment on him, then Mater would never get roped up into all of these spy shenanigans. And finally, we have one more Rod Torque Redline. That's right, our fourth in a row. Damaged Rod Torque Redline with boots. Now this was actually a diecast that was planned for release in 2012 but got cancelled. It's even featured on Rod's page in the Cars Diecast Character Encyclopedia. But not only was this item cancelled, it's actually also inaccurate. As in the movie, Rod has boots on both of his front wheels, not just one like the diecast showed. So if this were to get uncancelled, I think they should do what they did with items like Mater with cone teeth, and make sure it's not only uncancelled, it's also updated and corrected to be as accurate as possible. Now, there you have it guys, that is 4 Rod Torque Redlines in a row, and if you're tired about hearing about potential variants for him, don't worry. He dies at the end of this scene, so you won't hear about him anymore. Before Rod's fiery demise, we see a few different cars that he spoke to at the night of the party. One of them is just a generic red Ferrari, but another one is this interesting pink car. She's a reuse of the Vic Vanley design. Despite the fact that Rod apparently spoke to her at the night of the party, this isn't a background character we see at any other point at the Tokyo party, which I always found kind of strange, but I wanted to bring it up here as a fun, interesting choice for a Tokyo background character. It's also one that we know Rod spoke with, so hey, there's a bit of a connection to a significant character there. A few years ago, I did a viewer's choice edition of Cars That Should Be Made. And one of the comments that I ended up featuring in the video mentioned a background character that I had never noticed before. There's actually an RSN branded pity that you could see very briefly recording Daryl, Brent, and David at the start of the World Grand Prix broadcast. As soon as I learned about this, it quickly skyrocketed to become one of my most wanted Cars 2 items. Not only have we never gotten a camera pity before, and this one has a really cool design complete with the RSN logos and all that, it could be used for so many different purposes. It could also come packed with a World Grand Prix camera, which would be really great to have in the diecast line again. Despite being such an important item to the movie, it was only ever released once with Grem with headset. This could be maybe a slightly different one since this is the actual camera and not the laser gun, but still, people would love to have this. You know what else people would love to have? The final two missing World Grand Prix pit crew members. Over the years, we've received a pity and crew chief for every single World Grand Prix racer, save for two. We're missing pities for Lewis Hamilton and Shu Todoroki. Lewis's pity was supposed to be released in a 2-pack with his crew chief in 2017, but it, like so many Cars 2 diecasts, got cancelled because of the release of Cars 3. In 2020, Lewis's crew chief returned in a 2-pack, but with Lewis instead, meaning we still don't have his pity. Shu Todoroki's pity is our other missing World Grand Prix pit crew member. The image you're seeing on screen is his Tomica release. They were nice enough to make one, but unfortunately, Mattel hasn't yet. Mattel was doing really well releasing all the World Grand Prix pities and crew chiefs from 2018 to 2020. It's really frustrating that they didn't do these final two. I genuinely think that Lewis's pity and Shu's pity need to be the next two new releases from Cars 2. The next time we see new releases from Cars 2, it has to be these two. They are some of the most wanted, most missing, closest to having been gotten items from the entire movie. That was barely functional English, but you guys get the point. We gotta get these, and soon. I'd love to see dirt track variants of the World Grand Prix racers, namely McQueen, Francesco, and, of course, gotta say Raul Cerul as well. He absolutely dominates the racetrack during the dirt section. I don't think it's necessary to get dirt track variants for all the World Grand Prix racers, but hey, if that's something that they want to do, I'd say go for it. I would just mainly focus on these three. They are easy to do, missing variants of significant Cars 2 characters. Also from this race, Miguel Camino with Flames to go alongside the Carlo Veloso and Nigel Gearsley with Flames we've gotten in the past. As I'm sure many of you know, Miguel with Flames was supposed to be released in 2017, but he ended up getting cancelled due to the release of Cars 3. And while we don't see them get shot at until a bit later on in the race, I did want to mention both Rip Klutchgonski and Max Schnell with Flames as additional variants. We actually don't see any flames come out of Rip, just smoke. But we also don't really see Rip's back when he gets shot at. He just turns around and there's smoke coming out of him. For the sake of consistency, I'll say make a Rip with Flames to help kind of complete the set. When Max spins out, we see the flames not only coming out of his sides, but also coming out from behind his wheels. And for that reason, I always thought it would be cool if they had a Max Schnell with flames, have not only his flames shooting out of the side, like Miguel and Nigel, but also have translucent orange wheels, representing the fire going on back there. And the final cars from the Tokyo race I want to mention are some race fans with these big clapper sticks that we see all of them clapping together. They come in different colors, presumably representing different racers. It would be nice to see 2 or 3 of these with different color clapper sticks, different car models, etc. There are a lot to choose from. PD Pacer is up next. This guy does have a diecast, but only one with his torch. Since he features with Finn in this whole action sequence on the streets of Tokyo, PD Pacer might just be the lemon with the most amount of screen time in the movie who hasn't received a normal diecast variant yet, save for Alexander Hugo, who was only ever released with his party hat. Finn ambushes PD and Acer with a fire extinguisher. This moment marks the return of Finn's magnetic wheels, as he's turned one of them magnetic, seemingly so that it could cling on to the fire extinguisher. This diecast could work in a similar way to the many other cars we've got holding items over the years, where they simply could clip the fire extinguisher into the mold of the car right above the wheel to make it look like he's holding it. Acer and PD Pacer with foam are up next. These two could make for a nice 2-pack together, both completely blinded by fire extinguisher spray and screaming. Guys, I'm sorry, I can't come up with something interesting to say about every single item in this video. This is literally two Pacers with foam on them. Like, that's it. Petey Pacer runs into a Japanese police car who also ends up getting covered in foam, so that's the next item here on the list. Preferably, I'd like to see the Japanese police car both with and without foam as two different potential variants. It actually doesn't appear to be the same type of car as the police cars from Tokyo Mater, so I think it would be nice to get without any foam on it, and then, again, have the foam on it as a separate variant. Maybe you could have it be a removable piece, like Cupcake McQueen, but I think it would just work better textured on a separate variant. I was always kind of surprised that we never received a diecast of this little peaceful flower shop owner. Or, sorry, these three very angry little flower shop owners. These guys have a line in the movie. They're part of a little joke during the Tokyo street fight where they all pop out and get mad at the lemons. I never realized just how many characters and variants could be made based off of this Tokyo street fight scene. It would have made for a really great diecast series back in the day. Another background lemon that's always stood out to me, this rusty brown Trunkov that's a part of the street fight, would be another great background lemon to add to the ever-growing army. And the last car I want to mention from the Tokyo street fight is the car on the karate sign. Another billboard advertisement car that I've always really wanted to see in the diecast line, but again, say it with me, we'll never get it because it appears on a billboard and not physically. Here in the airport, we have a good few interesting background characters. We've gotten several in the diecast line, one of them being Trent Croto, this car you can see off to the left of Mater, whose diecast included a whole trailer. Well, there are several background characters with trailers here. I'd really love to see some of them so that it's not just Trent Croto in the diecast line. Like, for example, this Mini Cooper could be really cool. Or this smart car. I love the idea of having a little tiny car come with a whole trailer full of luggage. As Finn takes Mater away, we have these two airport workers, Mei and Satsuki. I don't think these two are completely necessary to get as diecast, since they're basically identical to another airport employee that we have received in the diecast line, Ruka, but Mei and Satsuki are actually featured in Meet the Cars. They have names and a backstory, so I wanted to highlight them. Next up, we have Transforming Finn McMissile, Finn switching from his airport security disguise to his regular look. With how much Mattel loves the Transforming Lightning McQueen diecast and concept, I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten this Finn yet. It would look especially cool with the whole checkerboard pattern that we see when he switches off the hologram. I'd really like to see a re-release of Grem with Weapon in the future, include the little mobile car jack that Finn shoots out that wobbles Grem over. While this could work as just a re-release with a new accessory packed in, it might be a better option to give Grem with Weapon a new startled facial expression to help recreate this scene better. I always appreciated that Mattel went out of their way to do large-scale plastic playsets for the bigger characters of Cars 2, making them fit perfectly with the scale of the Cars diecast line, and that's what they did for Sidley. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't also wish Mattel made some sort of metal 155 scale line Sidley just as a regular release, like all the other planes we've gotten in the diecast line over the years. Yeah, it wouldn't be in scale, but hey, the planes in the Cars diecast line are never in scale, so. It would just be nice to have this in addition to the larger playset Sidley we have. In the past on my channel, I've talked about how I'd love to see the hauler line expand into other types of similarly sized vehicles, such as oil tankers. So, of course, I had to mention the lavatory service truck Acer falls in. Could make for a really unique hauler release. From the scene where everybody reads Mater's goodbye letter, sad Luigi and Guido would be perfect expression variants. With their cartoonishly big eyes, this is a visual gag unlike anything we've ever really seen in the Cars series, and I always thought it was adorable and hilarious and would make such a great pick for a variant of the two. This next one is an item I don't think we'll ever see, but if you want to get technical, the most significant Miles Axelrod variant we're missing is this one. While there is the Miles Axelrod with open hood diecast, which showcases the infamous engine, we've never gotten any sort of merchandise of Miles in this form, where he has this sort of blue paneled tarp covering his entire hood, hiding his identity. Now, it makes sense as to why we've never gotten any merchandise of this in any toy line. We don't see all of Miles here. We see nothing beyond just the hood and the little blue pieces covering it. But, like I said, technically, this is the Miles Axelrod with the most amount of screen time that doesn't have a diecast yet. It's how he presents himself when he calls the lemons. It's part of the very famous engine image throughout the movie. So, while it is a very outside-the-box idea, could be fun to see what Miles looked like in full when he was like this. Moving on to the Paris sequence, the first car I want to highlight is this one that gets angry at Mater for not knowing when to turn. This car reuses the Alex Van Del model, and would be nice to get because we've never gotten the Alex Van Del model with tires. This background car is also just part of a pretty funny and memorable moment, and is right near Emmanuel, the big tour bus that we did receive a diecast of. The street musician Pity is an item that I kind of forgot hasn't been made. He has a whole shot to himself in the Paris montage, and all of the other prominently featured Paris montage background characters have been made, most of them being released in the 2014 Paris tour line, but this guy simply wasn't. He's such a fun design with his beret and mustache and music box, and his diecast should totally include the little hubcap that he's collecting spare change in, or actually he's collecting spare nuts and bolts in. Easily one of my most wanted Cars 2 background characters, and one of the ones that I'm most surprised we haven't seen yet. And also in this shot behind the Pity is this nice green tour bus. Same type of bus as Emmanuel, who we did receive. This could be a fun repaint. It really reminds me of the tour buses that we got for Planes 2. If you were to ask me what my most wanted Cars 2 diecasts were, I would most likely answer Ludwig and Gertrude based on the painting of them that we see. You'd probably then promptly unsubscribe to my channel and go back to watching Mr. Beast and his $80 AI thumbnail generator that's stealing from users without consent. So those toy cars, am I right? All jokes aside, Ludwig and Gertrude, as they appear here, I think it would be such a funny idea, but unfortunately it falls into the same camp as the billboard cars that I've mentioned throughout this video. Since they appear as part of a painting, I just don't think we would get them, which really is a shame. It'd be really funny to have them paired alongside the dilapidated Gertrude and Ludwig that we do have. On the subject of cars that appear on billboards, which means we probably won't get them, I had to shout out Gaston, a parody of Gusto from Ratatouille. Just like Lotso Hug and Bear car, this would be such a great Pixar crossover item that's just right there, but since they don't make diecasts based on things that are on billboards and advertisements and such, I doubt we'll ever get this, which is really a shame. Like I said, it's right there, guys. We've gotten plenty of Paris Parts Market background characters over the years, but I did want to point out a few more fun ones that I'd like to see. Up first, this red Ape that we see selling scraps. It's kind of similar to Trike Feldman, a World Grand Prix vendor that we got back in 2014. That was a super chase. But yeah, this is basically him, but selling scrap and junk instead. This guy on the right of Mater when he's driving in is pretty unique. It's a mold we've never gotten before, and he's also dilapidated in a pretty interesting way, where it looks like one of his headlights, like the whole area where one of his headlights is supposed to be, is missing. This car that's just kind of awkwardly sticking out of one of the stalls and making a completely blank expression is just so goofy to me. I'd really love to see it. Maybe this one could get away with reusing Gertrude's mold, but I think it would have to be a unique model. It's just a really funny looking character. And the final Paris Parts Market background character I want to mention is this one, who's talking to Tombe when Finn spots him. This is a car with a completely unique mold, honestly one I'm a little surprised we didn't get in the Paris Parts Market series, considering it's the car with Tombe when he first shows up on screen. The Italy section of the film is where we first get introduced to a group of background characters we see several times for the rest of its duration. The all-black lemons that act as security guards for the lemon heads. We do have a security Trunkov in the form of Toga Trunkov, but getting the Pacers and Gremlins here would be really, really great. All of these cars look the exact same, they're just that type of lemon, but painted all black. So they'd be really great to buy multiples of an army build, so you could have a whole security force. This one would literally never happen, but it's just so fun, I had to mention it. I really want to see Ivan with Mater's face grafted onto him. You know how Holly uses her hologram technology to kind of see what Mater would look like if he were Ivan, kind of fit Mater onto Ivan. I think this would make for such a unique diecast. It would be an Ivan variant. It would be super weird, but it would also be an absolute nightmare from a marketing standpoint. Like, what do you call this? How do you sell it? It's not Ivan as Mater, but it's not Mater as Ivan. It's also not Ivan Mater. It's also not Ivan. I don't know, but I gotta say, I'm pretty shocked that Holly Shifwell predicted Mr. Beast's $80 AI face swapper that you could use to steal YouTuber thumbnails. I hate that I mentioned that twice in this video. Can we please get that guy off the internet? Moving on to Luigi's hometown in Italy, we have a lot of different background characters, the majority of them being Fiats, of course. Something interesting about these background Fiats is that, unlike Luigi, they don't have the little felt roof hair thing going on, they just have flat roofs, which means that they would actually require a new mold. This red Fiat next to Uncle Topolino was one that I've wanted for a long time because it looks pretty similar to Luigi's mom from the World of Cars book. Having this background character from Cars 2 that looks just like her would allow us to use this diecast as Luigi's mom as well. Since most of the cars in this scene are Fiats, I wanted to include at least one that was a different type of model to sort of diversify the portfolio of items we could get from this scene. So I decided on this Alfa Romeo here all the way off to the right in the background. This mold already exists in the diecast line for Francesco's crew chief and Karine Cavi, but Francesco's crew chief has a headset on and Karine Cavi has sunglasses. I don't believe we've ever gotten a blank Alfa Romeo without any accessories on them. The next background character that I want to highlight from this scene is this blue Fiat. This is one that stood out to me for several years now. I always really liked the design. For fans of my Cars Adventure series, this blue Fiat was actually the inspiration for the custom character Giuseppe Aguilo. So yeah, this is a background Fiat that I quite like. And while we're at it, we may as well get this unique sort of greenish Fiat that he's talking to. I am genuinely shocked that, of all characters, I found a new variant we could get for Mama Topolino. Something that I never noticed before is that when Mama Topolino drives up to McQueen here, she's actually carrying a trailer full of drinks. She then drives away and the drinks are left next to McQueen, but I've never heard anybody talk about Mama Topolino with a drink trailer being a potential diecast idea. Since Mama Topolino is so small, you could easily get away with this item as a single, and she could be attached to the trailer using the same system we've seen on items like the road trip cars and Sarge with Cannon. This is one that's so weird and so goofy, we would definitely never get it, but I just had to mention Mater when they're putting the Ivan disguise on him. Holly kind of warps its shape a bit before it fits onto Mater, and how funny would it be to get this disproportionate Ivan Mater, right? Where he's just got this huge top part and his regular-sized wheels underneath. This would never happen, definitely a bit too weird, but I thought it would be a fun idea to mention. For a far more realistic option for an Ivan Mater variant, we have what I'm calling Ivan Mater with dents. When Holly first puts the Ivan disguise on Mater, she notices that Mater has several dents that will need to be buffed out in order for the disguise to work. Of course, Mater defies this, doesn't want it, and explains why his dents are so important to him. And so Holly works around it. So the idea here is to have an Ivan Mater that looks just like what you see on screen. Have his dents be shown in Mater's regular coloring, with a little blue highlight showing that the hologram can't work around them. Ivan Mater's been gone from the diecast line for a long time, and he's pretty rare nowadays. This could be a fun alternative to that item if they want to do something new, and not just a re-release. Porto Corsa gives us a brand new set of background characters to take a look at. I love these cars jumping off of their yachts into the ocean, many of them sitting on little inflatable pool floaties. I'd love to see these made, but only if they come with the floaties. If not, then they're just generic background characters that aren't very interesting. Of course, we all know Fabrizio, but right behind him are two security guard Maseratis. These guys look really sleek with their all-black paint jobs and would make for a really cool two-pack. They'd look really great displayed behind Fabrizio. And trailing right behind them, this Pity who just came out of the Carmani store. You see what they did there? And he's completely swamped in luggage. In 2017, the Road Trip Guido diecast did something incredibly similar to this visual gag. So, while we don't have this background Pity, who I absolutely love, he's adorable and hilarious, we do have a Guido that basically does the same thing. But come on, let's get the original guy in here too. Once again, you could pick basically any race fan from these scenes, and it would be really great. Some of my favorites from Italy include this one, a Nigel Gearsley fan who's a red Maserati, and this one with the Francesco F hat, which seems to be the same model as the Mime and Painter cars. There are already a lot of World Grand Prix race fans in the Cars diecast line, and there are also several that were cancelled. Among these, we've gotten fans for several of the World Grand Prix racers, but ideally, I'd like to see at least one fan for each racer in the competition. Now, we all know the World Grand Prix flag waver, Eric Langley, whose diecast has been released many times over the years. But did you know that there are actually 3 different flag wavers for the World Grand Prix? There's actually one for each race, all of them being cars from that country. Eric is actually just the flag waver for the Tokyo race and is a Honda. A separate flag waver, a Fiat, appears for the Italy one. The Fiat actually has artwork. Eric was given it by accident on 2 different occasions on his diecast in both 2012 and 2017, but the Fiat doesn't have a diecast release, unfortunately. Considering how often we get Eric Langley, I really highly doubt we'll ever get this flag waver and the London one, but I really hope we do. Just like the transforming Finn McMissile I mentioned earlier, I would love to see a diecast of Mater turning into his Ivan disguise. And with just how popular Transforming McQueen from Cars 1 has proven to be, I think this is really a great choice. While Transforming McQueen and the Transforming Finn that I pitched earlier are both just simple repaints, Transforming Mater would have to require a new mold, where the top half is Ivan Mater and the bottom half is regular Mater. Karl Haselmoff, the hauler that transports Victor Hugo to the casino, has been one of my most wanted items from Cars 2 for a very long time, and one that I'm honestly pretty surprised we've never gotten. This guy would be really cool if he were released in the hauler line. In my Cars 1 video, I talked about how I really think they should expand the hauler line with other types of haulers like oil tankers, and Karl here, who's completely different than anyone we've ever seen before, would be such a great pick, and collectors would eat him up. The hauler for the lemons, come on, that's a surefire hit. That's a home run. Karl is also one of very few characters to be featured in Meet the Cars and not have a diecast yet. Up first, inside the casino, I think we should get some regular blank casino pitties. We have gotten 2 in the diecast line, Marcello and Marco, but they were both holding very specific accessories from later on in the movie, a party hat and the phone. So just getting some regular ones that aren't holding anything would be nice. They could also easily work outside of the casino setting. Easily one of the most heavily requested Cars 2 diecasts is regular Alexander Hugo. He has several lines throughout the movie as one of the most prominently featured lemons, and for some reason, we only have a variant of him with a party hat. The lack of a regular Alexander Hugo is so strange. The other one is called with party hat, implying that there would be a version without, but it's been like 13 years now, and we don't have that, so. And as long as we're on this scene, I do want to also mention we could maybe also get some of the other blank black security Hugos, but honestly, if we got a regular Alexander Hugo, getting the other security Hugos would be kind of redundant. They're all the exact same. You could just buy multiples of Alexander. When Miles Axelrod phones into the other lemons, he's being worked on by some pitties. Now, I can't tell if it's 2 pitties or just 1 pitty that leaves the screen and moves somewhere else. If it is 2 pitties here, then you could pack 2 pitties together, give them different tools. If not, then you just have the 1 pitty with a tool and maybe some of Axelrod's parts as accessories. This waitress that appears briefly in Italy is the exact same type of car as Daniela Muffler, who we talked about earlier on in the video. She's a different color scheme and was actually released by the Disney store simply named Barmaid. Funny story there, they actually got her confused with Daniela Muffler and ended up making her in a Tokyo-themed pack. I'd just like to mention one final Fiat. This all-black one stands out to me. Finn drives past them very quickly here when he's chasing down the lemons now that he knows where they are. Also in this scene is this angry yellow bus. This is one that I'm really surprised we've never gotten in the Diecast line. He has a line shouting at this guy, Trike Feldman, the Ape, who was released as a Super Chase back in 2014. This yellow bus reuses the model of Emmanuel, the French bus who is in the Diecast line. So again, surprised we haven't seen him. The Lemon Helicopter is up next. This is a character that we don't fully see, we just see the bottom as Finn gets attracted to its magnet, but Lemon Helicopter would be a pretty unique choice for an addition to the Lemon Army. A character not having its face shown hasn't stopped Mattel before. I think the only thing really getting in the way of this character being released is that giant magnet. I would suggest just releasing it without the big magnet, just, repaint the Dinoco helicopter into this character and call it a day. The magnet is a retractable part in universe, so it's fine. We could just say it retracted, right? As the World Grand Prix racers crash, we see another background Porsche. This kind of off-white, cream-colored one has stood out to me for a while. I think I incorporated it into an early episode of Cars That Should Be Made back in the day. So it's one that's been on my mind as a fun potential release for a while. Cars fans love getting damaged versions of racers, and with the big pile-up in the Porto Corso race, we have plenty to choose from, as Shu, Miguel, Max, Raul, and Rip all collide. You can see in this shot, Max has a considerable amount of crash damage on him. I know Mattel doesn't really do damaged racers all that often, but I wanted to mention these anyway. Like I said, Cars fans love damage variants, and we already have several of these guys with flames exploding out of them, so, come on. Crash damage, not a bad idea. And while we're at it, I'll also mention Shu Todoroki with flames, who also comes from the scene, and was, say it with me now, canceled in 2017 because of the release of Cars 3. A fate all too familiar for Cars 2 items. We've gotten Alexander Hugo with party hat, so why stop there? Let's get some of the other background security lemons with party hats as well. In this shot, you could see some Trunkovs, but you could also see some Gremlins and other cars with party hats as well. Just make sure we get regular versions of them without the hats first. I guess in the case of Trunkovs, we already do have that. So Trunkovs are good to go. Just make sure we get the Gremlins and stuff without the hats first, so we don't have another Alexander situation on our hand. Thank you. And while we're on the subject of security lemon variants, let's also get them with their weapons. In this shot alone, you can see a Hugo and a Pacer, both with their guns released. Why not get maybe one of each type of security lemon with weapons as well? I just love the concept of having a whole army of the security lemons, since each of the lemon heads have several in the movie. For some reason, all three of Mater's most used gadgets in Cars 2 are missing from the diecast line. Starting off with his guns. There is no Mater with weapons diecast. Despite this scene in the casino where Mater fires off Gatling guns and then him using them again in a significant moment later to break out of the ropes when he's strung up in Big Bentley, there is no Mater diecast out there that has the guns on the side, with one exception. Much like Finn with his metal wheels, there is a Lights and Sounds Spy Mater that includes the guns. I thought maybe it was a censorship thing, which I totally get. Maybe they simply don't want to make a toy of Tow Mater with guns, but Mattel has made several toys of Mater with guns, including, again, that Lights and Sounds item in the diecast line. It's just missing from a normal release. In the last entry, I mentioned that Mater's three most significant gadgets are missing from the diecast line. Well, this is the second of them, his parachute. There is no Mater with parachute diecast. This is something I'm kind of surprised about, but also kind of not surprised. The parachute would probably be pretty difficult to make. It's big, it's an unconventional shape, and it simply wouldn't fit in the packaging very well. I think there would also be a debate on if it should be a plastic piece to be perfectly sculpted in that parachute shape, or if it should be a cloth piece to actually work like a parachute. I would go with a plastic piece sculpted to look like the parachute that's used here, and I think in order to put it in the packaging, you could simply have it be detachable or assemblable. It would have made for a pretty good deluxe back in the early Cars 2 days. I'm kind of surprised we didn't get it with a scaled down parachute. At the end of this scene, Mater loses control and crashes into a Francesco merchandise booth. While the vendor pity here isn't all that interesting looking, I'm pretty sure he's just a blank red pity, I still think this could make for a pretty solid release if you pack him in with some Francesco-related accessories. Maybe a bit of his desk full of the Francesco stuff he's selling. Despite having several lines in the movie, the two Italian cars that sort of guide McQueen around and try to talk to him after the Italy race while Mater's tracking him down don't have any merchandise and don't even have names. While they aren't all that notable, they might just be the characters in Cars 2 with the most amount of lines who aren't yet in the diecast line. Both of their models exist, you simply have to repaint Franca for the one on the left and Tom Talk for the one on the right, throw them together in a 2-pack, and you're good to go. In 2015, we received a diecast of Terry Gong, the pity that bangs the gong at the Tokyo party. Why not do a similar concept and make Mater with the gong? This could work as a pretty good deluxe, so long as you maybe scale down the gong a bit and make sure you fit both of them in the packaging together. Bonus points if you give Mater one of the really goofy faces he makes while banging the gong. Man, guys, making this video is making me really miss when we had deluxes. I hope they return to the diecast line at some point soon. There are so many fun ideas we just can't get right now. Moving into the London section of the movie, the London race features its very own flag waver, just like Tokyo and Italy before it. In London, it's a Mini Cooper. It seems to be the same type of Mini Cooper as Nigel Gearsley's crew chief Austin Littleton, so we reuse the Austin Littleton mold and give it a flag on the side, and, well, you're already halfway there. The other flag wavers are easily some of my most wanted Cars 2 diecasts, and some of the most forgotten about ones that I'm honestly concerned we might never get because we get Eric Langley all the time. Earlier on in the video, I mentioned how we have one Tokyo taxi, Bob Pulley, but there are also some other Tokyo taxis that are different colors. The same is actually true for London. While most of the taxis, including the one we have a diecast of, Chauncey Fair, are painted black, there's actually one that you can see over here whose color seems to be a bit of an off-white or maybe a light blue, I can't quite tell. I think we really should get another London taxi since there are so many of them in the movie, and getting this one that's a different color is a bit more special than just getting Chauncey Fairs with a different face, which is what I think we probably would get. Not that I'd have a problem with that, any new taxi would be nice, but this one in particular, because of that different color, different design, I'd really prefer. One of the most frequently requested Cars 2 items that I see people talk about is a corrected Holly shiftwell with wings. For those of you who don't know, the original Holly with Wings diecast from 2011 doesn't have her back spoiler. With just how important and iconic this Holly is in Cars 2, it's no wonder fans have frequently requested she get fixed. We've gotten a lot of the cars that watch the race with the Queen, but I've always been a really big fan of Range Rovers in the Cars diecast line, so I wanted to highlight this white and black one that we see in the background, who we haven't received yet. And now, for the final of Mater's 3 significant spy gadgets that he's missing, we have never received a Mater with rockets diecast, and I really don't get why. I get the parachute, it doesn't really fit into packaging well. The guns, I also understand if they don't want to make a Mater with guns sticking out of his sides, but the fact that Mater with his rockets is missing is really, really strange to me. I can't believe we didn't get it. It's literally not only used significantly here throughout the finale, but also in the last scene of the movie. It's kind of the beat that the whole film ends on, and we don't have it. Now, the rockets were actually included as part of that Lights and Sound spy Mater that also included Mater's guns, but just like Mater with his guns, a regular version is still missing after almost a decade and a half. And now we have finally made it to Blue Gremlin with headset. If you're a frequent viewer of my channel, you probably saw this one coming. And even if you're not, this is the car I put on the thumbnail, so you probably expected to see it in here as well. Blue Gremlin with headset has been one of my most frequently asked for Cars Diecasts here on the channel for years. It's always just kind of baffled me that we never got this gremlin who actually has a speaking line in the movie. He warns Grem and Acer that McQueen and Mater are coming their way. I absolutely love this background character. He's my favorite gremlin, and I really wish that he'll be the next lemon we see in the Diecast line. Come on, Mattel, please make it happen. The fan base has named this guy George Gremlin, whether you want to call him that or just Blue Gremlin with headset. It's about time he has his moment in the spotlight. Come on, Mattel, please give us Blue Gremlin with headset. As the movie starts to wind down, we have one final Finn McMissile variant I want to talk about, and this may very well be the most niche one I've mentioned yet. As Finn and Professor Z approach Tony Trihull, Finn's gadgets all start to be ripped off of him. And as you can see, after his guns are removed, he has these little kind of clips sticking off of his sides. So, I'm going to call this suggestion Finn with weapons without weapons. Mattel, when you take my idea, which you totally will, because this is such a great one, come up with a better name, please. And while this segment is dedicated to Finn with these little gun clips sticking out of his sides, I do want to very briefly touch on the zipline sort of grappling hooks that we see Finn use all throughout Cars 2. I almost included this section for them in this video. They're used very often, and they're super fun, but unfortunately, I just simply couldn't think of a way that they could actually work at 155 scale. I thought, maybe you could make them retractable like Precision Series Mater's tow hook, but there are 4 of them. I simply don't think there's enough space inside the car, and the little hooks themselves are way too small to reliably work. So as much as I'd love to see a Finn with retractable working zip lines, as awesome as that would be, I think it's simply too unrealistic. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that, since it's probably Finn's most used gadget throughout the movie that I haven't touched on yet. But Finn with weapons without weapons on the other hand, now that's a great idea. In Ye Left Turn In, the bar that Acer and Grem crash into, if you look on the wall, you could see a carified version of the tapestry from Pixar's film Brave. This was Cars 2's hint at the next Pixar movie coming out. Much like the billboard cars I talked about earlier on in this video, the Brave tapestry cars will almost definitely never happen, and much like Lotso Hug and Bear car, I think it's a shame since these are Pixar parody crossover characters that you have right there in the movie that you could do. You guys know I love it when obscure characters get variants, so I wanted to shout out the Ye Left Turn In patrons with their drinks splattered all over them: Chauncey Fares, M. Fendrickson, and Brett Warrenwagon. Chauncey especially, not only because he has the most amount of drink splattered on him, but also because Chauncey Fares is one of the most famous London background characters used in some promotional stuff featured in Meet the Cars, so it would be cool to get a variant. While we received diecasts of the blue and red Ye Left Turn In vans, Paul Oilclee and Brett Warrenwagon in the 2015 Ye Left Turn In series, there's actually a third van in the film that we haven't received, this yellow one. I don't know why they only did 2 and not all 3. This is something we've seen happen in the Diecast line on several occasions before. Remember in the Cars 1 video, I talked about how we've gotten Marco and Stu Bop, but not that third Piston Cup jet. Yeah, there are several occasions where there have been groups of 3 background characters, and they decided to only make 2 in the Diecast line for some reason. Moving into the final battle of the film, we have J. Kirby Gremlin with weapon. This item was actually planned for a release in 2017 as part of the London Chase line, but it was yet another item that was cancelled due to the release of Cars 3. Unfortunately, despite the London Chase line returning in 2020, we still haven't received J. Kirby with weapon. It's a real shame this item was cancelled. It looks super screen accurate with a great expression, and the gun even has the little ammo band hanging out of the side. J. Kirby's regular release is pretty rare, and giving him a variant is a nice way to allow more people to have a version of the character. At this point, I'm not sure what I would prefer to see, an uncancellation of J. Kirby with Weapon, or just a re-release of the regular J. Kirby. Ideally both, but if I had to pick one, I'm not sure what I'd choose. We've gotten a couple Lemon variants based on how they're defeated, like Vladimir Trunkov with Boot and Tubbs Pacer with Paint Spray. In a similar vein to those, I would love to see these security gremlins without wheels. Guido attacks by taking their wheels off, leaving them just with the little parts that you attach the wheels to. They would go great with the other defeated Lemons we have, and the other security cars that I pitched earlier in the video. Though I will say, ideally, I'd like to see these after we receive just blank security gremlins. I wouldn't want to get these first or in exchange for them. I'd like to see the regular security ones first, and then these at some point after. The scene where Sheriff puts a parking boot on Vladimir Trunkov features one of my favorite visuals in all of Cars 2. If you look closely in the background, you can see that Sheriff has put parking boots on several other Lemons on all 4 of their wheels. You get another look at it a bit later on, too. The security Lemons with boots are up there with my most wanted Cars 2 diecast. They're also up there with items I just don't think we'd ever get. I mean, they can't roll, but then again, we've gotten plenty of impound boot cars over the years, and that didn't stop Mattel from making them, so. Up next, we have another whole group, that being the British military. Any of them, any of the ones we see, I'll take. After several cancellations, we finally received Corporal Josh Coolin in 2020, but this whole group is full of different, unique military vehicles. From Hummers to trucks carrying missiles, to helicopters absolutely decked out with weaponry. Any of these would be great. Preferably multiple different cars here, and different types of vehicles to help kind of complete this group and make the scene bigger. And while we're at it, I'll also mention Josh Coolant with Weapon as a potential variant idea. He actually has his gun drawn for the entirety of his screen time in Cars 2, but it's not there on his artwork or on any of his merchandise, so it could work as an alternate variant. I mentioned early on in this video that there really aren't any Cars 2 McQueen diecasts that we're missing. He has very few looks throughout the movie, and all of them have been made in diecast form and then some. We've gotten so many different variants, metallic, rubber-tired, special edition variants based on World Grand Prix McQueen, and the design still inspires new variants to this day. But for one last McQueen from Cars 2, I'd like to pitch simply a World Grand Prix McQueen with some residue from the road on him. In all 3 Cars movies, McQueen often has some dirt specks and black dots on his bumper and around his sides. He's going super fast, he's not completely clean, it makes perfect sense, and with just how great Thailand's weathering is on items like Road Repair McQueen and this year's McQueen with Shovel re-release, I'd really like to see their take on just kind of a dirty racing McQueen. Maybe you could also give him a determined expression as well. We've gotten most of the cars that sit alongside the Queen of England at the end of the film, but this guy right here in the upper right-hand corner is missing from the diecast line. All the other cars in this shot were released in the Palace Chaos series in either 2013 or 2015, or both. Maurice. But let's complete this group of viewers with this Range Rover. And before we leave the London section of the movie, I want to mention Hydraulic Union Jack Ramone. We see Ramone in this paint job with his hydraulics up at a few different points in the London sequence, so why not add this one to the ever-expanding collection of Hydraulic Ramones. Back in Radiator Springs, there are a few more background characters that have caught my eye, like this white pickup truck with a black bed cover. I mentioned early on in the video that it's not often we get generic blank pickup trucks, and this one with its covered bed makes it a little more unique as well. Mia and Tia's model is reused for background characters all over this movie. Literally so many places in Cars 2 they have Miatas in the background, and I really like this yellow one behind McQueen and Sally at Flo's. At the end of the movie, we see that Holly has a brand new dent, which she, just like Mater, has decided not to buff out. Getting Holly with her dent could be really great for storytelling that takes place after Cars 2, or simply recreating the end of it. I could see Holly with dent being her own full separate variant, but I could honestly also just see Mattel re-release Holly one year and now have the dent molded into her. It's a pretty small character design change, but we've gotten plenty of small design changes in diecast form before. Tar McQueen exists, right? I have one last Radiator Springs background character for the list, that being this red car. This one really stands out to me. Like I said earlier in the video, it's not often we get red background characters, especially not this bright. I don't know if this item would need to use a new mold or not. Maybe it could get away using like the Gen Tan sedan model. It actually kind of looks like Masha L's wrench with the sort of shorter, smaller, slanted hood. I'm not sure. Regardless, another Radiator Springs background character from Cars 2 for your consideration. Thank you. Easily one of the most forgotten cameos in Cars 2, in my opinion, are Mia and Tia, who appear briefly at the end during the Radiator Springs Grand Prix. And for years, I've really wanted to see their Cars 2 designs in the Diecast line. You see, back in 2011, the Disney Store made this super limited edition, $150, large-scale McQueen, Mia, and Tia diecast set, featuring World Grand Prix fan designs for Mia and Tia. And I really wanted to see Mattel's take on these two. And then I looked closer at their cameo in the movie, and realized something strange. If you look at Mia and Tia's hoods, you could see that they actually have the exact same stickers that they had in the first movie. They don't have Hudson Hornet Piston Cup logos. The Mia and Tia design used for these Disney Store cars is simply not in the movie, and for years now I've been gaslit into thinking that this is what Mia and Tia looked like in Cars 2, when in reality they just look the exact same as they did in the first movie. So, for the first time in Cars That Should Be Made history, I'm removing one of my choices from the list. Not because it has been made, but because it just doesn't exist in the source material. But like honestly, if Mattel were to make World Grand Prix Mia and Tia's based on this Disney Store design, it would be pretty cool, right? Dusty Otis is another one of my most wanted character variants from Cars 2. This is what Otis looks like at the end of the movie, just sitting on the side of the road. Who knows how long sand and dirt have been collecting on this poor guy. Then Mater drives by, rockets past him, and all the dust goes flying off. Not only would this be a fun variant of a minor character to get, it would also help Mattel, who's had an unhealthy obsession with releasing Otis almost every year since 2022. Why? What's the deal with that? And we have one final item from the movie itself before we move into a few special cars at the very end of the video. Van with open luggage. When Mater rockets past Van, his roof rack, the luggage on his roof rack that is, completely splits open and all of his stuff comes flying out. Now, while there's not really a way to have the luggage flying out of him work, especially with just how much there is and how far it goes, I can definitely see a Van diecast that has his suitcase open and flipped to the side, and maybe they could mold one or two items to the inside of the lid of it to make it look like they're flying out. The movie may be over, but I have a few cars left to go over that appear in the Cars 2 credits. Despite us getting several diecasts based on the Cars 1 and 3 credits, we've never received any from Cars 2, probably because it uses this very stylized 2D artwork. Much like the advertisement billboard cars I've mentioned several times throughout this video, cars that appear in sort of other art styles never really make their way into the diecast line, but I really think they should. The Cars 2 credits are a goldmine of unique characters and variants, as we see these little cartoons of McQueen and Mater visit countries that they didn't go to in the movie. I want to start off with these adorable mountain climber variants of McQueen and Mater. Mater looks pretty similar to Materhosen, but he doesn't have kind of the Lederhosen itself going on. He has a bit of a sash instead. And McQueen with that hat, come on, adorable, gotta see it. We get to see a bit of the running of the bulldozers at one point in the credits, as McQueen and Mater are swarmed by these little cars that have their red capes. There are about 5 or 6 of them in the movie. You could easily release 2 of them in a 2-pack, or maybe just 1, and then people could go out and get duplicates until they have the whole group. The Germany section features a lot of fun characters as McQueen and Mater visit Oktoberfest. We have these 2 waitress cars with their very unique hoods with sort of dress, almost corset-like designs on the sides. We also have this hilarious Volkswagen off to the side here with a bonnet with a little flower sticking out of it. McQueen and Mater drive through. Mater, once again dressed as Materhosen, but now he has a massive drum in his truck bed. Alongside him is an Oktoberfest version of McQueen, complete with a little hat that's actually different than the one we saw a few scenes ago. These would be, once again, great new variants of the two to get based on the credits. It's funny how I said there are barely any McQueens to make from Cars 2 based on the movie, but there are a ton in the credits. And I also have to mention this army of nearly identical Volkswagens that trail behind the two. Your clones are very impressive. You must be very proud. And finally, from the very end of the credits, as McQueen and Mater make their way back to Radiator Springs, we see them in Hawaii, where there are these adorable pitties with a ukulele player and some hula dancers. And with that, we come to the end of Cars 2. And there you have it, guys. This has been every Cars diecast that should be made from Cars 2. This video was an absolute blast to make, going back to Cars 2 and finding all these characters and character variants who we haven't seen in the diecast line, but I'm really only scratching the surface when it comes to Cars 2. There are so many cars out there that haven't been made from this movie. Of course, these are just my picks, and I would love to hear yours, so let me know down in the comments which items from Cars 2 you'd like to see made, which ones that I listed you'd like to see, which ones that I didn't list that you'd like to see. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.